I am so honored today to be interviewing one of my medical advisors, Dr. Charles Weaver. He's a medical oncologist, and we've had the privilege of working together, or I have had the privilege for the past couple of months on so many projects that are helping the Learn, Look, Locate community. And today I'm going to be asking Dr. Weaver a lot of questions that I wish I knew when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But first and foremost, I wanted to ask him why you have become a Learn, Look, Locate medical advisor.
Well, thanks for having me for this discussion today. And it's been a pleasure working together thus far, and I expect that will continue into the future. I think my main interest in working with you is we have a shared mission. You know, I founded Cancer Connect in 1997 and have been focused on bringing information and support to the cancer community for almost 25 years now. And that mission dovetails very nicely with your mission. You take a slightly different approach that's a little more artistic and a little less boring, I guess, than my approach, which is a nice change. And it recognizes that patients and their caregivers and loved ones are all unique and seek information in different ways and different platforms. And it's important to make sure that there's a place for everyone to find the support and the information that they need.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about Cancer Connect and why you started it and kind of our work together with Cancer Connect?
Yeah, so Cancer Connect was founded in 1997, at the dawn of the internet age, shortly after I had left the beginning of my career as a stem cell researcher at Hutchinson Cancer Center. I became very interested early on in trying to figure out ways to help people access information so they could have a better dialogue with their physician. And one of the things I learned working at a major tertiary care referral center is that the people that found their way to a place like Fred Hutchinson back then were really hyper-motivated individuals that actually went to the medical literature. They went to libraries. You know, the internet didn't exist. And at the end of the day, they got much better care because they had access to better information than the average person. And so I became very interested in how do you get information to the masses? And even more importantly, how do you take the therapies developed at the major research centers into the community? Because 90% of cancer patients are treated by their local oncologist. And so the goal here is to get the best information to the most people and help translate the therapies to the local markets where people can actually access the care and not have to disrupt their lives.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the cancer community that you are moderating and that I actually have the honor and privilege to have available on my website, which I want people to understand that this is a way to really interact with other cancer patients across the nation, and you as the moderator, which is incredible. So can you elaborate more about that?
Yes, yeah. So Cancer Connect basically was conceived in the early Facebook era when a lot of misinformation was happening in the social media platforms. And we felt like we needed to create an alternative that was a safe and secure place where there was no advertising or marketing or sharing of personal information, where patients and their caregivers could connect with other patients and their caregivers and learn about the therapies they were receiving around the country, the types of side effects they were dealing with, the solutions that were being implemented, and really give patients an opportunity to have a peer-to-peer interaction and support network to optimize their experience. Cancer Connect's been running this social platform for over a decade now. It's used by Harvard, Dana-Farber, Roswell Park, Ohio State, and many of the major cancer centers. So literally somebody from a rural place in Wyoming or Montana can connect with someone who's getting their breast cancer treated at Dana-Farber and understand, for example, if the therapy they're being offered is similar to what someone's getting in a major cancer center, share experiences, and get answers to questions.
And how can they be a part of this? How do they access?
They can just go to cancerconnect.com and simply join the community. And once they're a member, they're free to interact with patients in a secure, moderated environment.
Yeah, and then we also have a page on the website at Learn, Look, Locate that welcomes you as well and takes you directly to the Cancer Connect community that is moderated by Dr. Charles Weaver, who's a medical oncologist. And there's just a lot of interaction that's very valuable for anyone going through the journey. I want to ask you about Cancer Calls, which is another wonderful initiative you have for anyone diagnosed with breast cancer. What is that all about?
So we also have a not-for-profit entity known as the Personalized Medicine Foundation, which provides a service called Cancer First Call. And Cancer First Call basically is designed to allow a newly diagnosed or a recently recurrent cancer patient to share their information with one of the oncologists in our organization. And our goal is not so much to give them a second opinion, but to help them understand what their diagnosis means, the types of tests they might need to get optimal care, whether a second opinion might be appropriate, whether clinical trials might make sense, and really kind of give them the information to empower them to move through the first 10 to 12 weeks of a cancer diagnosis much quicker than they might otherwise be able to.
Wonderful. Wish I knew about it. So I want to ask you a question about blood biopsies. I am a huge fan of some of the tests that are out there and the advances being made. And with your work and research, how do you feel blood biopsies will play a role in breast cancer diagnosis and treatment? What's the future, and why is this so important?
Well, blood biopsies, are already playing a role in the management of breast and other cancers, and they'll continue to do so. I think in many ways the technology is still in its infancy, but it has applicability in certain areas. So we know, for example, that if we do NGS testing and blood biopsies at the same time, we actually increase our ability to detect specific cancer-causing mutations. We know that we're able to monitor for recurrence and minimal residual disease in patients that are undergoing treatment. This has the potential to reduce the frequency of CAT scans and PET scans and other exposures to radiation over time, detect earlier recurrences. But the technology is still evolving. It needs to be more sensitive to do some of the things that we really want to be able to do with it optimally. I think you'll see multiple research labs and companies continue to improve the sensitivity of the tests. So it's going to be part of what we do for the future. And it's going to continue to evolve as a key management tool.
How reliable are they? I mean, I as a survivor, if I get a negative or if I then get a positive, could be a false positive. What are your thoughts on that? There's a lot of
false positives with the currently available technologies are pretty uncommon. So and there's two types of blood assays right now. There's sort of a tumor-informed assay which actually looks for DNA material that's unique to a person's cancer, and then there's the tumor uninformed technologies, which look at a range of epigenetic markers associated with cancer. The tumor-informed technology is more specific, although the uninformed is not far behind. But the real difference is in the sensitivity. A negative test with the tumor-informed technologies is more likely to be a true negative than with the non-tumor-informed technologies. Both of these techniques are going to continue to evolve over the time, and the real goal is they need to become better at recognizing the absence of cancer when cancer is truly absent. They're both pretty good at detecting cancer when it's there, but it's just as important to know when a negative test is truly negative.
And if you get a negative, should you feel like really good about that? And for how long? I mean, it's because some of these tests we have to take for every 3 months, and so.
Well, a negative test when you're looking for the ctDNA in the blood is not really any different than a negative CAT scan. I mean, we've been using techniques to surveil patients for cancer recurrence for years. And all of the technologies, whether it's a PET scan, a CT scan, an MRI, or a blood-based biopsy, can only detect cancer down to the level of the ability of the test to find the cancer. So, a negative test, of course, gives us some level of reassurance, but it's not always 100% accurate, obviously. I mean, it's interesting that if you look at the evolving blood-based ctDNA detection techniques, they actually pick up cancer about 8 to 12 months before a CAT scan or a PET scan will find that same cancer. And that's kind of a mixed bag because, earlier detection intuitively makes sense. We're not completely sure what to do with that information once we get it. We don't know if intervening sooner is going to make a difference or not. And there's clinical trials that are going right now to help us, better answer those questions. So from a patient's perspective, they need to understand and should discuss with their doctor if they're going to get these types of tests, what a positive and a negative test actually means, and what are they going to do with that information once they get it. And some patients may choose to not want to get these tests because they are unclear about what they're going to do with that information. And others are going to say, if it's positive, I'm going to do X. If it's negative, I'm going to do Y. And I want to know, and it's going to give them reassurance. So it comes down to having a discussion with the doctor about what you're going to do with the actual test results.
Yeah, I think it's in the breast cancer community. This is a big question mark. Yay, I love the test, but some don't want to know. And so there's a lot of controversy around it.
Yeah, and physicians are, there's a range of opinions amongst the physician community about whether this technology is ready for prime time. I'm a big believer personally that I like more information because information helps me plan. Yeah, so if I can detect a breast cancer sooner, even though it's unclear about what the next course of action is going to be, I like the opportunity to have more time to think about it. So for example, if you have advanced disease and you don't detect a recurrent cancer until it's widespread, the amount of time you have to think about, should you go somewhere for a second opinion? Should you explore clinical trials, which are time-consuming things? It gets very difficult. If you detect a cancer sooner, you actually have time to shop, if you will, and learn what options really exist out there, and maybe get on a plane and go to a couple of different places where there's some innovative things that are being done that could make a difference in your life.
It's really helpful. Thank you for that. I mean, I think we need to hear that, kind of just the, weighing out, what do you do with this? It's important. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel like in your lifetime, in the past, or maybe in the past 5 years, the advances that are being made in breast cancer treatment? Do you see that it's just accelerated so much? I personally, in the work that I'm doing, am obviously new to the space, but I'm seeing artificial intelligence and blood biopsies. What are your thoughts on the future of what's going on in the breast cancer space, and where was it and where is it going?
Well, for certain tumors, there's been very little progress, and for other tumors, there's been a lot of progress in the last 5 to 10 years. And most of that progress comes out of work in it's really a result of defining the human genome and being able to understand the molecular genetic basis of cancers. So when I trained, breast cancer was really only 1 or 2 cancers. Now it's several cancers and likely to become many more cancers as we continue to determine this unique cancer-causing mutations that lead to, a HER2 positive cancer, a BRCA-associated cancer, and so forth. This, of course, leads to the ability to develop precision cancer medicines that target these specific mutations or the products of these mutations that lead to cancer. And most of the work in the last several years really is focused on the development of precision cancer medicines, targeted therapies that are helping us sort of break this massive breast cancers into smaller and smaller groups that we treat uniquely. And I think that trend is going to continue.
So there's a lot of work being done to segment it even more and really understand the specific types, is what you're saying. right?
Yeah, and ultimately you're going to get to a point where even with breast cancer, you're going to have, what we call tumor agnostic disease. I mean, it's a mutation. It may manifest itself in the colon, it may manifest itself in the breast, but it's basically the same mutation that's
Mhm.
causing the cancer, and the specific targeted therapy is really going to be directed more at the mutation than the place that you discovered in the body. We define breast cancer because for hundreds of years we recognize it as occurring in the breast, but it's really a cancer-causing mutation that leads to its growth, and those mutations can occur in other parts of the body. So it may be conceivable in the future that we talk about BRAF positive cancers or BRCA positive cancers, as opposed to breast cancers, prostate cancers, colon cancers, etc.
Do you think there's enough education out there on genetic testing? Because I certainly don't. But from your perspective, I mean, that this is a life-saving screening tool that we have that is just not, we just blow it off. We don't think it has anything to do with us. I didn't get genetic tested until after I got diagnosed with breast cancer. I have a family history of breast cancer. So don't you find the system is, I don't like to use the word system, but one of the reasons why I started Learn Look Locate, because I think this is also broken. Father with lung cancer, grandfather with colon cancer. Nobody ever in my lifetime sat me down and wanted to genetic test me until I was at the cancer center with a tumor inside of me.
Well, this area, just like the area of precision cancer medicines, is evolving. So, our understanding of what a hereditary cancer is changing over time. Our
Hmm.
ability to measure hereditary cancers at the genomic level is changing over time,
Hmm.
and it will continue to do so. Um, the education, like smoking education, is out there for everybody that wants to find it.
That's
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
at some point, people have to take some responsibility in wanting to be engaged in their own healthcare and advocate for themselves, which is obviously a big part of what you and I both are trying to do with what we do.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the materials are out there. I just think patients in general, or I shouldn't say patients, but healthy people,
Hmm.
aren't going through life sort of wondering about all the things they could be testing themselves for.
That's true.
And in many ways, I think we try to avoid even thinking about those topics. So, until an event happens, until a friend becomes diagnosed, a family member becomes
Yes.
diagnosed, um, I think people are less engaged.
Yeah.
That's changing as we understand, the
Hmm.
importance of colonoscopies, mammograms,
Hmm.
and the early detection programs, as well as the breast cancer and other disease screening programs. But it's been a pretty slow march.
I agree. What would you like to say to a newly diagnosed person, someone that just heard the words that they have breast cancer? What kind of kind thoughts and
Yeah, so
wisdom?
I think whenever anyone's diagnosed with breast or other cancers, the first reaction is fear, anxiety. What am I going to do? How is this going to affect my life? And it's completely overwhelming. And I think with breast cancer in particular, what's important for people to understand is we have good treatments for the majority of people with breast cancer,
Mhm.
and that you actually have time to become your own advocate and learn about the condition and figure out what to do. Um, Sometimes the sense of urgency overwhelms us to act faster than we need
Mhm.
to. And I'm not saying procrastinate and put it off, but um, you have weeks, okay, which is a lot of time to figure out what your options are and where to go, and how you want to approach it, not hours to days. And I think there's a tendency for people to want to treat it and make decisions faster than they have to. So I think the most important thing is to step back, get informed,
Mhm.
understand as much as you can about your specific situation, understand what you also need to learn about your situation to give you the information you need to make good decisions, and recognize that you have the time to do that.
It's a lot. It's a lot. This is all new to all the terminology, the tests, the treatments, the options, the reconstruction, the lymphedema, you know, all of that. So I want to ask you, do you feel that the medical community is in touch with what's happening emotionally to people that are getting this diagnosis? I mean, I
Well,
have
I
my own.
think I think the medical community is a broad arena,
Yes.
and I think conceptually it's in touch.
Mhm.
But I think physicians and nurse practitioners and nurses and other healthcare providers are just as diverse as the patients that they work with,
Mhm.
and so you're going to find a range of techniques and abilities among the provider system,
Mhm.
just like you
Mhm.
do among the patient system. So,
Yeah.
you on the one hand, you have a patient that basically doesn't want to know anything. They just want to know
Mhm.
where to go and what to do. And they're not emotionally connected or engaged or avoiding it, right?
Mhm.
And at the other extreme, you have patients that are looking for almost more emotional support than treatment support as part of their overall care plan. And so I think that the challenge really is for patients to find the physicians and the nurses that want to interact around the management of their condition in the way that works best for them, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, patients often come to me and say, "Oh, so and so was a horrible communicator, and I never felt like he cared." And I'm thinking, it's probably not true,
Mhm.
but he or she was not the sort of person that was a great communicator. They were more of a technician. And then you'll
Mhm.
talk to another patient that went to that same physician and thought their style was perfect for what they needed to get through their diagnosis. So I think it's really an issue of finding a doctor that you can work with. And
Sure.
in cancer today is more and more of a chronic disease than it's ever been. The duration of treatment, the longer term therapy, the side effect management is very different than it was 25 years ago. So having a relationship with someone or an office or a team of individuals that you're comfortable with and that communicates the way that you want to communicate, I think is the goal. It's not always attainable, but I think it's the goal.
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue into my last question is when should and if should somebody be seeking out a second opinion? I know you wrote an article about that. It's on the blog page of my website. So I never did, and looking back, I think a lot of people are drawn to the top cancer centers. The marketing is making you feel like you're in the best hands, and sometimes yes, but what I'm learning with the work that I'm doing is some of the doctors, that are in smaller practices might have a better fit. And what are your thoughts on a second opinion?
So in general, I think second opinions are almost always a good idea if someone can get one. I
Right.
think there are certain groups of patients that benefit more from a second opinion than others.
Mhm.
And this sort of comes back to learning about your disease, right? So if you have a very early stage cancer that's a common cancer, the chances are overwhelming that you're going to be able to get quality care close to home where your support network is intact. The
Mhm.
more rare your cancer is, the worse the prognosis is, the more difficult it is to get care close to home. So part of the challenge is really trying to understand, the stage and phase of your cancer and what the prognosis is. And obviously, the more common the cancer, the better the prognosis, the easier it is to get treated in the community. That's not to say that community oncologists can't handle and don't handle appropriately really complex care, but there are really complex therapies that exist that not all community doctors can give.
Mhm.
So I'm a big believer, if you're being seen locally, that at some point, especially with a grave prognosis or an uncommon cancer, that going to a referral center that specializes in that cancer is really, really a smart thing to do. And if you
Mhm.
do that, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to learn that that center is offering things that you can't get locally and that you probably need to transfer your care, or you're going to learn that your local doctor is doing the exact same thing that they're going
Mhm.
to offer you at the tertiary center, and that you're going to be fine getting care locally, often in collaboration between the local doctor and the tertiary care center.
Mhm.
So you either get reassurance that you're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
or learn that maybe you should be going to a place that's a little more specialized.
Yeah. I think what I've been learning is also that some doctors are in the know on some of the cutting edge treatments. And that's important for people to know. And that's one of the reasons why I did this. I want people to be aware, as you said earlier, if you live far away, when you're dealing with possibly brain metastases and you need gamma knife or rapid arc radiation, I want people to know that these are treatments that are available, but that particular type of machinery or equipment, if you will, or treatment is not easily accessible, if I'm not mistaken. So they really need to do their
Well, but that gets back to the core mission of organizations like Cancer Connect and LLL, which is, people need to engage in their own care. They need to want to understand, you know, what their diagnosis means, what the
Mhm.
treatment options are, and be willing to explore that. The information's out there,
Yeah, yeah,
but if you
yeah,
don't seek it out, you can't you really advocate for yourself in a responsible way.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot on the patient, in my
I mean,
opinion.
my background was stem cell transplants, and I mean, when I was doing stem cell transplants, nobody in the world was doing stem cell transplants. I mean, people literally had to read an article in the newspaper, or you know talk to a physician that knew something about that, and get on a plane and travel thousands of miles
Wow.
to get these, right?
Yeah,
That today that information is all available on the internet.
yeah,
Some would say too much information is available on the internet,
yeah. Well, that's part of
but
the journey.
it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a lot easier to be informed and to have
Mhm.
a conversation with your physician. And I think the other thing people need to understand is, in my opinion, the oncology community in some ways is lagging behind the advancements in technology. So, many of us were trained as general oncologists. It's getting harder and harder to be a general oncologist because care is getting more and more specialized.
Mm.
In lung cancer in particular, I mean, 25 years ago, we treated it one of two ways, maybe one of
Mhm.
three ways. Now there's, I mean, literally a dozen or more precision medicines that treat unique aspects of lung cancer. And,
Mhm.
and so for the general medical oncologist to keep up with all of that information in lung cancer and breast cancer and colon cancer, where you're seeing the same thing occur, is increasingly difficult.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Are there any last closing thoughts you'd like to say to anyone watching that is really just navigating through this journey of, and the information, and just from your perspective and all the incredible work you've done and how you've also, tapped into the patient side, which I really respect and admire because it's just so needed, having the medical community really understand, kind of the emotional, toll, and also there's a thirst for knowledge like no other. Obviously, I took it to the extreme. Um, but any last thoughts? Because this is a lot.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just in kind of summing it up, I mean, be your own advocate. I mean, I think that's really the take home message for me in all these years, is be your own advocate.
Mhm.
Um, be engaged in your care. Recognize that it's complex. It's going to get more complicated. Recognize that the healthcare system is stressed. There's a shortage of oncologists.
Mhm.
Everybody's overworked, and we're all dealing with you know life-threatening situations that impact people's lives. And so the more you can be part of the solution, uh, I think the better it is. I mean, the complexity of care has changed so much in the last 10 years that it's, I think, I mean, I have some empathy for community oncologists trying to keep up with everything that's happened.
Wow. That's a really powerful statement, what you just said, and I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people to also hear from your side that there is a shortage and that the healthcare industry is stressed. And I think, even being diagnosed and looking back and going, why wasn't I offered an ultrasound? Why didn't I know this? So I think it's important for those that haven't been diagnosed, for those that have, to get almost ahead of the curve for their own self, to advocate for their own health.
Yeah,
So
I think one thing I've noticed over the years is patients think that the system advocates for them when they're first diagnosed. And the system isn't really designed to advocate for patients. It's designed to identify a condition that can be treated with medications that are improved by an insurance company, or a treatment that's considered the standard of care. And many of us need to have something more than what the market will tell us is the standard of care in order to get the best care. So you can't assume that the system is really your advocate. I think it gets back to you have to self-advocate.
I think a lot of people will resonate with that statement. Well, Dr. Weaver, it is an honor and a privilege to be working with you on so many great things that you have started, that we can share here at Learn, Look, Locate. And I am just grateful that you're one of my medical advisors, and the work that you do is so priceless because you truly understand how the emotional impact that this has on patients. And by continuing to bring this information to the forefront is, in my opinion, so valuable and priceless. So thank you so much. And thank you for your time today.
No, absolutely. We're happy to spend the time with you and happy to be involved with you in helping, both of us accomplish our missions of helping patients, get the support and access to information that they need.